Welcome to the Merchant Sales Podcast.
Hey, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Merchant Sales Podcast. In today's episode, I start off with another interesting conversation. I've been trying to have some conversations around the current state of small business and what we can do as an industry to help fight for small business owners. And who better to talk to than Jonathan Brooks of Business Warrior? And their company is specifically, their mission is fighting for local businesses. So really interesting interview. And he's got some free software that you can leverage to help your clients. I think it's a really great thing. So I think you're going to enjoy that conversation. Then I get to a really interesting question, which is, is cash discounting and surcharging becoming processor agnostic? And so I talk about kind of the state of technology today from processor agnostic technology providers around cash discounting and surcharging, and kind of this change that we're seeing that's going to allow you to offer these programs regardless of which processor you are with, as a large ISO and eventually even as a small, one-person office or a small ISO. So anyway, I think you're really going to enjoy it. Let's dive into that interview with Jonathan Brooks. Hey, everybody. I'm here today with Jonathan Brooks. He is the president of Business Warrior. How are you doing today, John?
I'm awesome. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. So John and I have a very interesting conversation for you today. We're going to be talking about really a lot of these issues that are facing small businesses. Obviously, COVID-19 has kind of accelerated a lot of these negative trends they're dealing with. And we're going to talk about, what you can do to help your local businesses combat these issues and help them grow their business. But before we get into that, Jonathan, we'd love to get your story. So how did you get into what you're doing now? How did you end up with Business Warrior? Give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah. I was a corporate guy for about 16 years, working with telecom. So, okay. I grew up in Kansas. I'm a Midwest kid. And so I call it Midwest values, straight shooter.
Yep.
I don't mess around with my language. I don't mess around with, my purpose. And so, that's really guided me to Business Warrior. But, before that, I was doing what a lot of young kids do out of college. You get a job and, you take an internship and then you kind of work your way up. And, I always had an entrepreneurial drive. Like I always appreciated, when I was walking down, Main Street, right, when in Kansas, and trust me, they're smaller in Kansas, but,
yes.
Main Street out there. And like, these people put their heart and souls into their business. And, I appreciated them. My family was, they're not from the entrepreneurial background, but, they instilled a lot of that work ethic. And so I got to a point in corporate America where I was like, look, enough is enough from where I want to go. And I want to actually go and really give back in a bigger way. And so I ended up joining up with my business partner, Rhett Doolittle. He's our founder. And he and I just had an infamous dinner one night where we connected on the same values, which is all around like, how can we create real value for businesses? How can we create like a long lasting legacy, not for us, but for the people that they gave up their corporate jobs.
Right. Exactly.
So Business Warrior came to be through a series of a couple of different business ventures that, we had gone through. And at the end of the day, we're here now because of the lessons that we learned over the last, 5-6 years as a company and as a team. And I couldn't be more excited and more blessed to be here.
Awesome, man. Okay, so let's dive in because I really want to kind of frame this conversation a little bit. Our listeners right now are, driving to their first appointment or whatever as they're listening to this. And so, my first question is always kind of why should they care? So talk about local businesses today. What do you see as the key challenges that they're facing that really motivate you and motivate your passion to help them out?
Yeah, so Small Business America today literally is faced with one of the most critical pivot points that they've probably experienced. And I would say even since the Great Recession.
Right.
And it's because when you have like Steinmart and these big boxes going out of business,
right?
There's not even news talking about the small business impact yet, right? It kind of gets blurbed in bit, but COVID, it was a sea change,
right?
A historical sea change, and so small businesses before they relied on kind of the way that they got there, which was, hey, I'm always going to be busy, I'm always going to be able to get customers,
right?
Oh, I kind of know this thing about social media, or I kind of know this thing about digital marketing. But at the end of the day, they really, relied on traditional ways to get customers. And so what COVID has really done to accelerate all this conversation is the way that was going to make you successful in the past is not what is going to make you successful moving forward.
Right.
And so that's what Business Warrior is all about. We're about identifying what's currently happening in your business and giving you the keys and like literally the tool set to go and actually get customers in the way that, customers now perceive business.
Right.
You got to be strong online. You got to have a good reputation. You got to be found on Google, right?
Right.
And if you're not, then unfortunately you're going to be part of, that historical way that small business has acted. And I don't know if that's going to be, a way to survive anymore.
Yeah. It's funny. I had a really interesting experience yesterday. This really doesn't apply too much to what Business Warrior does, but so we just hired a new young lady who's going to be helping out with childcare for us,
Mm-hmm.
So part of this deal was I said, hey, she didn't have a vehicle, and I said, we're going to get you a company vehicle, So I'm like, okay, cool. We got to go buy a car for 10, 15 grand, So we end up, I thought, well, I want to support small business, so I'm not going to go to the big dealership. I'm going to go to like a small, car place, right?
Yep.
So yesterday we go over there. She test drives a car. I'm like the least patient person ever. So I'm like, do you like it? Yeah, great. Let's buy it. So I'm like, I go ahead and the guy, I'm like, hey, let's go. Let's do this, And so we want to help her establish some credit. So I said, hey, we'll put you on this loan and we'll do it as a loan instead of cash so you can start getting some credit. So anyway, long story short, 2.5 hours later, we finished the paperwork, and I was literally about to go insane. And I'm asking this guy, and it was so funny because I said to him, why haven't you digitized all of this,
Yes.
And he's like, well, we'll digitize it once the banks refuse to accept the paper version. And I left there thinking to myself, I knew this, I had this interview today, and I left there thinking to myself, so many of these small businesses, they need somebody to tell them, like, no, you're like, there's a reason that the big businesses are beating you, And so I guess my next question for you is this, a lot of the stuff that you guys do, whether it's social media, Google search, all this, these are things these business owners are already like, yeah, of course, I need to do this. They know they do.
Yep.
And yet they don't. So why is that? Why do you think that they struggle so much to do what they know they need to accomplish? What's the challenge that keeps them from doing it?
So I think it's a couple of things. One is the complexity of the information is actually a big part of why they don't act, right? I mean, it almost ends up being like analysis paralysis. It's like, oh, I'm going to look at Google Analytics. Oh, no, yeah, of course I'm on Google, right? Okay, great. So you're on Google, but do you know that you're at 0 rating on Google? So cool. When people are searching for you, there's not that trust and reliability.
Right.
And I think that, being a business owner today, it's just different. And it's not because of COVID, it's because the expectation of customers, like your experience with a car dealership, right? Like I would go insane if I sat there for 2.5 hours and filled out manual paperwork, right?
Right.
So, today customer expectations have really evolved. And I think there are business owners that, say, hey, look, I could evolve with the times, but it's too messy.
Right.
So what Business Warrior has done, I mean, and this is like literally one of our missions, is we simplify all the complexity and we give it to you in just 4 simple ways, right? It's like, how are you doing on your marketing? How are you doing on your listing? How are you doing on your rep? How are you doing on your website? And it's that level of like, and I really believe in the KISS model, keep it simple, stupid.
Yes.
I think that's the big difference for why Business Warrior delivers so much more value, is because we identify the problems for them and then give them small steps to fix it. Because if you overwhelm a business owner, they're going to be like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Right. Got it. Okay, so I think, at this point, I think one of the things we can do to help our listeners to understand this concept is to get really specific, okay? So I want to do 2 different verticals. So let's start with an auto repair shop. This is probably the most common merchant account, actually. A lot of, individual reps are out there. They've got 15, 20 auto repair shops. So let's say that I'm an individual rep. I've got this individual auto repair shop. I know they're struggling. They need more customers. How would Business Warrior help my client, the auto repair shop owner, prioritize their time and their resources to get more clients?
I mean, it's a great question. We're actually seeing a rise in auto repair shops as well, joining the platform, because, particularly, I'll just say this, going now into an auto repair shop, you actually, those were probably actually the most ancient of customer service groups.
Yes.
Right? And so the very first thing is you get your Business Warrior score, and you're going to instantly see, okay, my website doesn't even have the latest information around how I'm supposed to show up to my customers. So we're able to, literally scrape the website, and we're able to understand like, hey, Is your website moving fast? Is it built with the right data so that Google is able to identify if you're like having a special on your website? Are you even making sure that Google understands you're having that special so that if somebody types in, best auto repair shop, Google's able to pick that up, right?
Sure.
And so Business Warrior comes in, and without the business owner having to do except 3 pieces of information, which is like literally their name, their email, and their business address, we're able to pull that info in. So that auto shop, now all of a sudden, within just a couple of minutes, they know if they're prepared to take customers. In their mind, they think they're prepared to take customers.
Right.
But the difference is that, that auto shop, most likely their website's probably pretty slow. So imagine, you're wanting to get your car fixed as a customer and you're, Google searching, hey, best auto shop around me. Or maybe you're really reliable and you want to understand if, what the current social distancing is for the auto shop. Well, you're going to pull the website up for that, for the auto shop. And so if they're not up to date, if they're not moving at fast speeds, and if they don't have the latest information around social distancing, you have a question in your mind, do I still go there?
Right.
And that question is happening more and more. And so what we're doing in that auto shop example is we're helping the business owner understand, are you really prepared now to take in as many customers as you're looking for?
Right.
So that's the big difference for the auto shops is that, there's now these, level of questions that every single consumer is asking about. Okay, so if I pull up the website, is it working fast? If I go to Google, what's the latest rating, right? So did somebody have a bad experience or is it all 5 stars?
Right.
And it's not just Google. We're talking Facebook, Yelp. I mean, the customer journey today, I'm sure you probably, when you were, buying the car, you probably looked at, hey, here's Facebook, here's Google, here's Yelp. And then you made a decision based on all of them.
Right.
And so consumers are going that way. And auto shops is a prime example of somebody that really needs to get with the times on how important that decision-making capability is.
Got it. Okay, so now our auto shop repair owner knows that his website sucks. So now what does he do?
Yeah, so you can follow the steps that Business Warrior gives. So we keep it simple. You can actually literally follow step-by-step on how to improve your website.
Okay.
But we also know that auto shops are not website managers.
Right.
So as part of Business Warrior, we have a marketplace. You can actually hire a team of website specialists.
Oh, wow.
It's a super low rate, and we'll manage your website for you. So in this whole entire KISS model, keep it simple, stupid, we basically just say, hey, look, for 2 hours a month, get a website person. They'll be able to help you make sure that your website speeds are good. They're going to be able to help to make sure that your social distancing, messaging is out there. Heck, they're going to make sure that you're putting your promos on your website. I mean, how many auto shops do you go there and they're like, oh, I'm going to give you 15% off. I'm like, I didn't even see that on your site.
Right.
Yeah. And so, with that service in the marketplace, we're able to really combine the analysis and the do-it-yourself steps that body shop could do. Or you could hire a specialist and we'll take care of it on your behalf.
Now, where in, and we're probably going to get to this later, but just out of curiosity, where in that process does Business Warrior make money? Like, is it like we're going to give you the information for free so you know what you need to do and then you pay us if you do services? Or is there like an ongoing, like how does it work with Business Warrior? I actually don't know. That's one thing I didn't look at before the interview. So.
No, it's all good. So, we adjusted with COVID as well.
Okay.
So prior we had, a free trial to our software.
Right.
But I think one of the core things, and I know this confidently between Rhett and I, one of the core things is we're fighting for local business.
Yes.
And so when we saw COVID happen, we were like, you know what, the right thing to do is to get the information in the hands of business owners to have them be very clear on what they should be doing.
Okay.
So we actually have made Business Warrior free. So the very beginning entrance, it's like a credit score, right?
Right.
Everyone deserves a credit score. Everyone deserves a Business Warrior growth score. And so as a new merchant, you're able to come into the platform for free. You're able to look at it. And of course, like all software that's out there, there's a free version of it.
Sure.
But then we also have upgraded premiums.
Right.
Those upgraded premiums, they get you better data, they get you real-time analysis, and they get you a team that can actually do it on your behalf. So that's end up how we make money.
Yeah. And see, and I think, and I think that's so crucial too, because that really does lend itself well to the direct sales model, right? Because, if I'm wanting to set myself apart right now in the marketplace, I'm talking to that auto repair shop owner, for me to be able to say, doesn't cost anything, let me just do this Business Warrior score for you real quick, just to see how you guys are doing. That's a huge benefit, right?
Yeah. And I think, and again, I skipped our background a little bit, which is we have a lot of experience with ISOs and with agents because prior to Business Warrior coming to be, we were reselling another platform.
Okay.
And so one of our main distributors were ISOs.
Got it.
And so like we get this, we get the ISO business, we get how hard it is to be an ISO agent at the same time. And so that ISO agent now is the new term. They're consultants.
Right.
Well, what Business Warrior is going to do as a consultant is we're actually going to give you consultant information. And we're going to give it to you in literally less than 30 seconds because you can be standing out in front of that auto repair shop. You could put in the information about the business. You can pull up their personal score that's going to be for the auto shop that you're talking to, walk in there and automatically build trust with that business owner because you're going to be able to show them, hey, here's what's going on within your business. And it's not all bad. It's not all bad stuff. Their business owners are doing some stuff. Hey, great. So you are doing really good in marketing, but hey, you need to work on your reputation. Can I give you this tool as part of my services, tie then into the merchant services, and all of a sudden you have a win-win. You're giving them data about their business that's critical, and all of a sudden now you're giving them, a better option for merchant processing.
Sure. Yeah, I love it. Okay, cool. All right, so let's do this. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's do a different vertical. So let's talk about, let's say, fine dining. Very different than auto repair. Now, obviously, I'm assuming a lot of the same stuff applies as far as the website. Can you give us some other things? What would maybe a fine dining establishment use Business Warrior for that maybe would be different than what we described already?
Yeah, absolutely. So in a fine dining example, they're probably already focused on reputation. They're probably already focused on listings, right? But what we're finding so critical is that majority of these business owners, they don't have the basics of marketing technology installed as part of their customer experience. So yeah, sure, they may have a point of sale or a loyalty system. But do you know how many people go back to visit your website and that you literally are missing out on communicating with them again because you don't have simple marketing tech installed? And so what Business Warrior will do is we'll identify whether or not that fine dining restaurant even has the marketing technology allowed to be able to retarget. And so if you and I, if we've ever, let's just, we're Googling that fine dining restaurant, we go there, we buy a steak, we spend $300. Well, the point of sale in the loyalty system, we may get an email, but what Business Warrior does is we help that fine dining restaurant now follow their customer and continue to prompt them with more ads to get them back.
Yeah.
So it's very similar, like, hey, great steak at, Morton's, right? Morton's kind of a big chain, but JoJo's Steakhouse.
Sure.
So great steak at JoJo's Steakhouse. Well, I would now be in your Facebook, I would now be in your Google, and Business Warrior gives you the steps to do that. Or again, as part of the marketplace, you can hire a team of specialists out and we'll actually do it on behalf of that steakhouse. So we can help them on the remarketing and retargeting aspect.
Cool. I love it. Yeah, great stuff. So, and I think, kind of going back to the ISO and the agent, model here as we kind of finish things up, I really love it because I think there's two ways that these agents can use. And I did this kind of stuff when I was selling out in the field, and it's funny, I make all these videos and all the agents see all my stuff about how to sell credit card processing. And the truth is the way I really sold credit card processing so well is that I was an expert with marketing and website design and QuickBooks and, business in general, and people wanted to deal with me. And so, yeah, I had all the pitches and I had all the scripts and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I was working with companies like Business Warrior to really add extra value. Now, for me, I actually did lead off with payment processing and would close the deal. But then what I would do is at the end of the conversation, or when I would come back for the follow-up, that's when I introduced, hey, by the way, I've got this other stuff. And that's what I used to control attrition. So that's how I didn't lose anybody is once I had a customer, by a year later, they were doing 3 things with me and they would never leave. So I'm just kind of curious, for those that are listening that are like, how does this work? Can you give a little more detail, both for like an individual agent as well as an ISO? How would they potentially partner with Business Warrior to provide this either as a marketing angle or to their existing clients?
It's a great question. So we have 2 really simple to use understand programs. One is if you're, in a smaller office or if you're an individual agent, right? So you're doing like 10 to 25 deals a month. With that program, you're able to use Business Warrior as that example in that auto shop, right? You can literally use it to go in, and before you walk into a merchant, you can pull their score and you can automatically see now what the key value points that you want to talk about around that business to build trust up. So at the individual agent level, you can use that tool to not only be in front of the business owner with relevant information, but if you do have a website, we can actually work with you to provide lead generation. And what I mean by that is we can do a co-branded landing page for you where now businesses who are searching, hey, best SEO tool, right? Well, so let's just say, it's CC Pros, right?
Right.
So that's your ISO. So what we'll do is we'll actually work with you on doing a CC Pro and a Business Warrior landing page. We can actually now get you leads that are going to come in through Business Warrior, but now you're able to communicate with that merchant on saying, hey, look, yeah, these guys know my business. So of course I want to talk to them about ways to either improve my merchant processing or get the latest POS technology. So that's on the smaller agent side.
Right.
On the larger ISO front, I have a challenge for a larger ISO. If you're willing to take a stand for the local business, then we can talk.
Right.
But if you're going to continue to, try to use leasing and do rate increases during a time when local businesses are struggling so much, you know what? You guys can stay on that side of the fence, because I want to work with ISOs and with agents that are fighting for the business owner. And that means that they're taking the tools and they're shifting the way that a conversation happens. You don't lead with savings, and stop trying to call yourself a consultant when at the end of the day, what you're really doing is you want to fight for that business owner. You want that trust to be built up. And I think that is such an important difference these days. COVID was a game changer, and Business Warrior is a game changer. And so we're looking to partner up with not just, smaller offices, but if you're a big ISO and you're willing to be in the fight with us, we're happy to talk.
Yeah, that's great. So, yeah, I think there's definitely an opportunity right now. I feel like with COVID, it kind of, I don't know your thoughts on it, but in my mind, it seems like it just really kind of, everything kind of got speeded up a little bit, So the idea that, a lot of these companies, Amazon was already taking market share, right?
Yeah.
But because of COVID, they've just taken a massive chunk of market share. Walmart and their ability to do, pick up groceries, by ordering online, that was already growing. With COVID, it just like exploded. So I feel like, I think a lot of small business owners are starting to feel left behind a little bit. Did we get too far behind, to catch up?
Yep.
And the truth is, in my opinion, no, you didn't get too far, right? I mean, like small businesses, they have something that Amazon and Walmart cannot provide their customers. They have a lot of things that they can't provide their customers, that experience. And I think too, I told my wife the other day, I said, I'm amazed. One of our favorite little restaurants that we go to, obviously shut down, with COVID. We're in Pennsylvania. And I didn't know if it had opened back up or not, 2 months went by. I kind of forgot about it. I drive by and guess what? They're open. Nobody was in there. And, I told her, I said, I just cannot imagine, like, if they would have spent $300 on one Facebook ad targeting just the people that have liked their page, which includes me, I would have known they were open and we would have already been there twice.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's not too late. They're not too far behind. And so I like it. And I really want to encourage our listeners, fight for small businesses. And even if you say, well, I'm going to give this Business Warrior thing away for free to a bunch of people, that's not going to help me. Yes, it is. You're going to get that reputation. It's a numbers game. You're going to get some people that are going to say, hey, thanks for that. Now tell me more about what you provide. But I think long-term net effect is if you become like a person in your community that fights for small business, that's a position worth having in your community, I think.
I 100% agree. I mean, that is the whole purpose of Business Warrior. And, yes, you can use it as a way to give it for free. And just know, though, that, look, we're also in business. And,
right, of course.
Right?
Sure.
Like, of course there's money to be made on it.
Right.
But the reality is that you make money when you get trust built up with your customer and with your merchant.
Yep.
And that's what we're all about. Let's build some trust up. Let's fight for the local business owner. And I appreciate it so much being on this. So thank you.
Awesome. Hey, Jonathan, thank you so much for your time, man. Hope you have an awesome day.
Here is Questions from the Field with James Shepard.
Hey, everybody. Today I want to talk to you about a very interesting question, and that is cash discounting becoming processor agnostic? Is cash discounting and surcharging really becoming processor agnostic? And so I want to explain this concept to you a little bit. And, a lot of times I use this segment to just talk about trends that I see happening in the industry, and this is a big one. The history of cash discounting and surcharging is very interesting because when you look at it and you see the initial state of it was very much a processor specific thing. In other words, if you wanted to offer surcharging, you're going to have to go through a processor that has a surcharge program. If you want to offer cash discounting, you got to go through a processor that does cash discounting. And there was several reasons for that. The first reason is that there is some front-end technology that is required for these programs, much more so for surcharging, because you have to do a bin recognition to tell if the card is debit or credit, so that you're only adding the fee to credit. Whereas with cash discounting, in most programs, that means they're going to apply a fee to all non-cash transactions, including signature debit. So when you look at this, structure, there's some front end. There's, terminals. There's software. There's things that need to happen to implement the service fee. And so, processors came out and said, hey, that's what we do, right? We have, this is what we do. We have technology that, allows you to offer cash discounting or surcharging, right? Well, then the other big piece of it is the back end piece. And so the back end piece is the billing part of it. So this idea of making a clean statement where it doesn't look like a normal merchant statement. It looks like a surcharging statement or a cash discounting statement where it actually shows, here's how much revenue you brought in from consumers. We use that to offset, the fees, and this is what's left. So, that was kind of the way it worked early on, is that it was processors. And I started talking about a year ago, I started talking about this with my consulting clients a lot, is I said, because it is a really big problem. So just so you understand, for those of you that may not really understand how the industry works, there are most ISOs out there that are larger ISOs. They have minimums that they have to hit with their various companies. So maybe they're, a TISA shop or a WorldPay shop, or which, I guess would now be Fiserv, or no, that's First Data. I got to keep them all straight in my head. But, you have these different shops, right, for these big companies, and they guarantee minimums. Hey, we're going to give you at least X number of deals or X amount of processing volume a year in order to get our, really high split. So as a result of that, cash discounting and surcharging, that was actually one of the biggest barriers that people weren't talking about. Is a lot of these ISOs were like, well, I can't really offer cash discounting or surcharging because I have to hit my minimums with, say, First Data, and First Data, is not offering this cash discount or surcharge program. And so in order for me to offer it, I'd have to go to another processor, and then I wouldn't hit my minimums. And so it was a big issue with a lot of companies. Well, good news for those of you that are in that situation, and also some interesting information for those of you that are just selling. I really believe that we're on a very solid march towards this being a technology thing and not being a processor thing. So as far as the front end, there are definitely companies now that have solved that problem. In other words, you can sell for TSYS, First Data, whoever you want to, be selling for, and you can go ahead and get terminals with software that's going to handle cash discounting or surcharging. Like, that definitely exists. There are gateways that handle it, that integrate with things like Clover, right? And so, that already exists. But what I'm starting to see now is a shift where even the back end, the billing part, that is starting to slowly happen. And so I really believe where we're going to be at in 6 to 12 months is that you will be able to sell for anybody you want, any processor you want, and you're going to be able to then leverage the technology provider to get the cash discounting and surcharging technology, okay? Now, what does this mean for the industry? Well, it's a couple of big shifts. Number one, I think it's going to get harder for processors to charge the additional fees for cash discounting and surcharging as far as the Schedule A cost. So historically, the last 3 years, if you're doing a cash discount program or a surcharge program through a processor, their Schedule A costs are basically marked up for various reasons, some legitimate, some not, but they're either making more money off of it or they're just marking it up to cover certain costs. But the Schedule A costs have been historically higher. So you're paying more money as an agent, more money is coming out of your residual, in order to do cash discounting. I believe that revenue is going to decrease and it's going to shift over to these technology providers. So instead of it being like the processor marks up your Schedule A, 10 basis points and 8 cents in order to do cash discount, instead you're going to be dealing with a technology provider that's going to be charging you for the terminal, and they're going to charge maybe 10 or 20 bucks a month as like a software fee or something like that. And then the Schedule A is just the Schedule A. There's not going to be different Schedule A's for cash discount and surcharge than there are for traditional processing. So I think we're going to slowly see that go away. It'll still exist to some extent, but I think the broader market is going to move away from that idea. The other thing that's going to happen is, you're really going to see this concept of billing and this idea of being able to send statements to the merchant. You're going to see credit card processing statements change a lot. So they've already changed because of all the PayFacs out there that just randomly can create whatever kind of a billing statement they want. So you already have the whole PayFac situation going on, but now this is going to compound it where cash discount and surcharge statements are actually going to look very different. And that's going to be a challenge because if you have somebody that is on surcharge or cash discount, if they do want to switch back to traditional for some reason, it is going to be a little harder because you're not going to have as much information on the statement to be able to tell them what it would be if you switch them back again. So long story short, I really do believe it's a positive in the industry. I really believe that. I've thought for a long time that it needed to move that direction. There's still some things that need to be solved. Compliance is a big one. It's like in this model where the technology company is providing the terminal and the technology, or the gateway or whatever, who's providing the signage, who's going to, respond to compliance complaints, and issues like that. So there's still that piece of it because right now that stuff all goes through the acquirer. And so it's like, who's going to handle that? But I really believe that, now that I feel like there's been this shift in the industry over the last 6 months where people are like, okay, I think this cash discount thing is here to stay. I think surcharging is a good option that is definitely here to stay. So I think there's now becoming these technology companies that I predicted would happen, which is they're now coming in and saying, hey, we can solve this problem for the entire industry, not just for one processing company, and we can handle all of these issues so that anybody could offer our cash discount or surcharge program with any processor they want, and they're working through and doing these integrations. So it's not 100% where it needs to be right now for, like, in my opinion, for an individual agent to just say, I have my own cash discount and surcharge program. I have my own technology provider. I don't think we're there quite yet because of the back-end billing is not quite where we need it to be. But I do believe we're at a point where if you're an ISO and you have minimums to hit, but you want to be able to offer cash discounting and surcharging, you could do that. I'll put it that way. You could do that at this point. And so I think you can find the right providers technology-wise that are going to enable you to stay with your current provider. You're going to have to handle some of the compliance yourself or work on that. But you could definitely have these programs in place in a compliant way, in a way that makes sense, while not hurting your minimum. So that's an exciting thing, and so that's kind of the direction that we're going. So if you have any questions about that, if you're an ISO, I don't talk about it much on the podcast, but I do have a consulting practice. The reason I don't talk about it very much is because I have more work than I can handle now. But if you want to reach out, I'll do my best to help you out. It's james@ccsalespro.com, james@ccsalespro.com. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. Hope you have a terrific weekend and a terrific week next week.
Thank you for listening to the Merchant Sales Podcast. Whether you are an industry veteran, processing executive, or just trying to learn about the payment space, we appreciate your time. The Merchant Sales Podcast is a joint production of Greensheet.com and ccsalespro.com, and we hope you will tune in next week for more information and tips on building your merchant services business.